But now, as Louise was saying a few minutes ago, it's a big day in the House of Commons today, another big day, with MPs due to vote on a range of different options for Brexit.
Yep, here to help us guide us through it all is Hannah White, Deputy Director of the independent think tank, the Institute for Government.
Good morning.
Hannah,
Good
let's
morning.
all take a deep breath. First of all, let's just literally, they're called so-called indicative votes. What does that mean for starters?
So normally the way the House of Commons makes decisions is a yes-no binary thing. So yes, we like this, no, we don't. What Parliament is trying to do today is to provide an indication, rather than take an absolute decision, of what type of Brexit the House of Commons might support. So they're going to vote on lots of different possible options and see how much they like different options.
OK, well, let's take our viewers through the options this morning, and you can discuss them as we go. Hopefully you can keep up to date with all this. There's quite a bit of information, but we're going to start with the possible no-deal Brexit. Yeah.
So this is what some people would call a WTO Brexit. And,
World Trade Organization.
Exactly. Yeah. And it would mean that rather than leaving with a negotiated deal with the EU, a divorce deal, we just let the Article 50 process run out and we cease to become members of the EU at that point. So then we would have no transitional period. We would just, the next day we would not be members of the EU. And we wouldn't have any sort of arrangements in place with the EU about how we relate to them at that point. So we'd have to do a series of side deals.
OK, other options. Let's talk about a possible free trade or Canada-style agreement.
So for many people, this is a reason to do Brexit, so that the UK can have a free trade agreement with the EU and with lots of other countries around the world. One of the problems with it is that it doesn't solve the Northern Ireland border. It makes a difficulty in Northern Ireland. But it would mean that we could trade, we could reduce barriers to trade by negotiating those with the EU, so that's why it's attractive to some people.
And some people have complained about that, I was reading yesterday, because that does involve freedom of movement, which is what some people used their reason for voting against that sort of idea in the first place.
So there probably would be some kind of agreement as part of a free trade agreement about access to each other's sort of visa-free travel and things like that, but it's not free movement as we have it at the moment. OK, third vote is the Prime Minister's Brexit deal, which has been turned down twice already.
But there is a sort of sense that things might be changing with regard to that as well.
Yeah, so actually that's not on the table today. The government hasn't put that down as one of the options. But the point is that, today Parliament's going to discuss all these different options. I think the Prime Minister may be hoping that if there's no clear answer from today, that actually the idea of Parliament being in control of the process is sufficiently alarming that if she brings her deal back, people might vote for it.
And whatever happens today may influence Theresa May's deal and whether or not it goes again for the third time.
Exactly.
OK, other options. Well done, everybody, stay with us with this. Another option is a possible so-called Norway Plus or Common Market 2.0. I'm not sure I even said that right. Yes. Referred to as a soft Brexit.
Yes, and this is what many people have been saying. There may be some kind of majority for, or majority that could be built for, in the House of Commons. And some people who don't like Theresa May's deal have said that the way that she's got to where she is today is a problem because she's never tried to see if there would be a majority for a softer type of Brexit. And this would mean membership of either or both of the customs union and the single market, which would make us more closely aligned with the EU than under Theresa May's deal.
The other another option to consider is what some people call a people's vote or another referendum.
Yes. Now, that's been rejected also by Parliament. I think supporters of a referendum really see it as needing to be a sort of the option of last resort if everything else hasn't been on the table, if Parliament comes to a firm view about what it wants. Many MPs think that it would be appropriate then to go back to the people now that there's different information on the table, now there's a more specific proposition, and say, is this actually the way you want to leave?
Another possibility that we should discuss as well is the possibility of actually just revoking Article 50, effectively then cancelling Brexit altogether, and that might be one of the options they consider as well?
Yes, I think that's an SNP-backed motion, we understand. I think, a lot of people have signed a petition to say that that's what they want, but I can't see that happening directly without there being a referendum first.
OK, so just take us through today, because there, as we say, there are going to be a whole different raft of things they can vote on. I understand they're voting on paper, which is extremely unusual, and that's because if they'd done it in successive votes, it could have influenced. I mean, it gets so complicated, couldn't it? It could have influenced the way people vote, but it's different this time.
Exactly. So if you do it all on paper, people are making every decision on its own merits rather than trying to game it by thinking about, if I vote for this and there's that outcome, then what happens there?
So whatever they decide are those things that we'll vote on, which the Speaker will then decide, is then they'll just get a piece of paper with all those options on, and they tick the boxes that they would go along with, and they put a cross in the boxes that they wouldn't agree with. It's just, I know it's not simple, but essentially you can choose one. Yeah, exactly. You can choose more than one option.
Yes, they can choose yes or no to each of the options, whether they could support it, but then we're not entirely clear what happens after that. We think they'll decide today whether they want to take, sort of in advance, another day of time on Monday to deal with the outcome of today, but it's not really clear what would happen on Monday, you know.
My conclusion, it is absolutely fascinating, if a little complicated. But Hannah, thank you very much for talking us through it all.
I think, Hannah, common ground is the interesting thing, isn't it? Actually, we're going to be asking that later. We've got 3 MPs, one Labour MP, one from the SNP, and one Conservative MP, trying to find out, all from different points of view, trying to find out if there is anything that they actually agree on. Because unless they can agree on something, again, we're not moving anywhere, are we?
Exactly, and I think the point of the exercise today in Parliament is to try to find out second, third preferences. What are the things that people could live with? Because we've pretty firmly established that we can't find something which is a majority of people's first preference.
We'll be speaking to those 3 MPs in about 20 minutes' time.
And of course, that happens later, and we will discuss it tomorrow, the results of said exercise tomorrow. Thank you.
Very handy, Hannah. Thank you very much for that.